All right, Mike, today we're talking about episode 22 of Co-Created, Transformative and Therapeutic Benefits of Digital Storytelling with guests Pip Hardy, Laura Mazzoli Smith, and Kate Thompson. This one was released on September 20th, 2024. What resonated with you in that conversation?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of things. There were some big words in there. I went and looked up afterwards, like transformative learning theory, which I was unfamiliar with, and I got excited about as I was looking at it because it's essentially what we do, as DST facilitators. But I would say one big thing that stood out to me was just how much they talked about the idea of the group. Uh, uh, Experience of digital
Hmm.
storytelling, and they actually were talking about in the context of running group workshops. But I would say, you don't need a group of 10 people for it to be a group. It can be two people, right? One on
Hmm.
one, and they all of a sudden, and really it emphasized to me what a great name this podcast has, right? Co-created, because that really is, as they were talking about it, they're like, yes, this is the individual story, but it's also the group story, right? And
Hmm.
how people talked about that, how it came into being through the group. And so, yes, it's my story. I made it myself. It's about me, right? It's about my life. But this story came out of me through the group conversations and the group context and the way that I interacted with the people in the group. And so, the idea, we all of us always are co-created, right? Whether we recognize it or not. We think that we're telling stories about us, but really what we're telling stories about is the human experience, and the way that we have experienced this world is so connected to all the people around us, whether we're telling the story or living the story. It's always already co-created, and so
Hmm.
I love that part. It just really emphasized, sort of the name of the podcast, but also what we do as facilitators. And the thing that she talked about in context of that was that interpersonal learning, or that social learning, that occurs, and how much we learn from each other as we go through these processes. And I was like, man, I really wish, this is partly why I wish everyone has a chance to make a digital story, right? Because you learn so much about yourself and others as you go through it. And of course, the story at the end is what everyone sees, but they don't see that transformative process that occurs as people create those stories. And that's
Hmm.
why those documentary films that we've made have been so important, right? For common language. So people can see the transformation in action and not just the finished product. And it really emphasizes to me the importance of having, again, having good facilitators involved in these processes, right? And I think slowly people are coming to understand that a good facilitator in a digital storytelling workshop or working one-on-one with people can make all the difference in that person's transformative experience. And it's not because of anything that we do in particular for that person. It's in creating the environment that allows people to be transformed. Right. And
Hmm.
that's about what all of our teaching is about. How do we create the right environment for these stories to come up to the surface? So, yeah.
Well, and we actually got to meet Pip and Laura recently at
Yeah.
the International
Hmm.
Digital Storytelling Festival. So they came on, they're the first guests on after we rebranded to Co-Created. And then we
Hmm.
saw them. And it was just, I hadn't met them in real life before. And just to have an in-person conversation is so different than to hear about it through a kitchen table night or
Yeah.
a podcast
Hmm.
recording over Zoom. And so it was really neat to get to have conversations with them and just then see where the
Hmm.
conversations take you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I think one of the cool things about all of that that has come out since we got to meet them is this community of practice. I think it's another thing they talked about is the importance of having good people around you, right? When you're interviewing someone or talking to someone, it's different than when you're sort of facilitating workshops. And so I think it was Laura who's talking about how much she appreciated getting brought into this world of digital storytelling and recognizing the value of it as a storytelling methodology. And so now that we've got this international community of practice, right, we'll be able to keep connecting with those guys and hopefully, be able to support and encourage each other and learn from each other moving forward. So
Will you talk a little bit about the international community of practice that you've set up?
Sure. Yeah. So 4 times a year, we're going to be getting together. There's digital storytelling facilitators all over the world that we got to meet when we went to Greece. And yeah, lots of people have signed up for those meetings. Where basically the way that it works is we'll introduce ourselves, talk about our projects. We'll try and learn from each other's, hopefully successes and mistakes, and not really like teach each other about digital storytelling, but just be there to learn from each other and support each other. And man, it's already our first meeting was amazing, and I learned a lot actually, and I can't wait for the next one out coming up in January. So yeah.
So we were talking about episode 22 of Co-Created Transformative and Therapeutic Benefits of Digital Storytelling. It was based on a research paper that they had done. Um, and I will put the link to that podcast as well as the paper, as well as the new link that you have for those international digital storytelling community meetings. So all of that will be in the show notes. Thanks, Mike, for your thoughts on that podcast.